What would you do if your own sister looked you in the eye in front of 100 strangers and said, "You are no one special"?
Would you cry?
Would you argue? Or would you just sit down and let the sky answer for you? Because that's exactly what happened to me. On a quiet Tuesday flight, my own sister tried to shrink me down to nothing. She wanted an audience. She wanted witnesses. She wanted everyone to see me small. She got her audience. But she never expected what would happen 40 minutes into that flight, when two fighter jets appeared outside our window and the captain's voice started to shake. This is the story of the day my sister learned that some people don't need to shout to be powerful. Some people just need the sky to speak for them. Nobody noticed. My name is Sarah. I'm 32 years old. And for most of my life, I was the quiet one in my family. My sister, Emily, was 2 years older than me, and from the moment we were kids, she made sure everyone knew the difference between us. She was the star, the homecoming queen, the one with the loud laugh, and the bigger friend group. I was the one who read books in the corner, the one who left home young, moved across the country, and rarely talked about my job. That was on purpose. See, what my family didn't know, what nobody outside a very small circle knew, was what I actually did for a living. I wasn't a quiet nobody working some boring desk job like they assumed. I was a United States Air Force officer, a command pilot. I had earned my wings the hard way, through years of training most people can't imagine, and I had flown missions I could never talk about at family dinners. I never told them, partly because of security, partly because, honestly, I liked having one part of my life that was just mine. Away from Emily's shadow. Away from her jokes about how I'd never really succeeded at anything real. So when our mother's birthday came around, and the whole family gathered for a group flight to surprise her, I showed up in plain clothes. No uniform, no rank. Just Sarah, the quiet sister, boarding a commercial flight like everyone else. I had no idea that decision to stay hidden was about to explode in the worst way. At the gate, Emily was already holding court.
She always was.
Loud, glowing, surrounded by people laughing at her stories. When she saw me, her smile changed. Just slightly. That look she always gave me, like I was an inconvenience she had to tolerate. "Oh, look," she said loud enough for strangers to hear. The family ghost decided to show up. A few people chuckled. I forced a smile and said nothing. We boarded together, and that's when it happened. The airline had made a small mix-up with our seats. Nothing dramatic, a simple reshuffle that happens on flights all the time. But Emily saw an opportunity, and she took it. "Actually," she told the flight attendant, loud enough for the row behind us to hear, "can you move her? She won't mind. She's used to sitting in the back." The attendant looked at me, unsure. I just nodded. "It's fine," I said quietly. But Emily wasn't done. As I picked up my bag to move, Emily leaned toward the row of passengers next to us, loud enough for half the cabin to hear. "Don't worry," she said, smirking. "She's not used to attention anyway. She's kind of a nobody." A ripple of laughter passed through nearby seats. My cheeks burned. Then she said the words that would replay in my mind for the rest of that flight. "You're no one special." She said it with a laugh, like it was a joke. But everyone heard it. And everyone looked at me, the woman being told in public that she didn't matter. I didn't argue. I didn't explain who I really was. I just picked up my bag, walked past rows of smirking strangers, and sat down quietly in seat 12F, alone, at the back of the plane. I stared out the window as the doors closed, feeling that familiar ache, the one I'd felt my whole childhood. Small, invisible, unwanted. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was above this. But deep down, something in me had been simmering for years. And that day, without meaning to, Emily had lit a fuse she had no idea existed. The plane took off. I sat in silence while passengers around me chatted, laughed, scrolled on their phones. My row was empty except for me. I thought about my career, about the discipline it took to get where I was, about the missions I'd flown, the responsibility I carried, the respect I'd earned from people who actually knew what I did. And then I thought about Emily, who had spent her whole life measuring worth by how loud a room got when she walked in. I wasn't angry, exactly. I was tired. Tired of being underestimated. Tired of shrinking myself so someone else could feel bigger. I closed my eyes and told myself, just get through this flight. I had no idea the sky itself was about to make sure that never happened quietly. About 40 minutes into the flight, I felt it before I saw it, a strange vibration, engines shifting, the plane adjusting speed. Passengers murmured. Phones came out. Someone near a window gasped. Then I saw them. Two sleek, dark shapes cutting through the clouds on either side of our aircraft. Fighter jets. F-22 Raptors, among the most advanced aircraft in the world, flying in tight formation beside our plane. The cabin went silent, then erupted into whispers of fear and confusion. Was something wrong? Were we in danger? Passengers gripped armrests. A child began to cry. I looked out my window calmly. I recognized the formation instantly. I recognized the protocol. This wasn't a threat. This was an escort. The intercom crackled. When the captain's voice came on, it wasn't calm and professional like usual. It shook. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We've been contacted by military air control. We are being asked to maintain current course. I repeat, please stay calm. They are here to... His voice cracked. The whole plane held its breath. For most of the passengers, those two jets were terrifying. For me, they were something else entirely, a message. Because I knew, without needing to be told, why an active-duty air escort would suddenly appear around a civilian flight. It only happens when a marked security officer or command-level personnel is on board, and someone up above has flagged it. That someone was me, who I really am. The flight attendant's radio buzzed. She listened, her eyes widening, then walked straight down the aisle, past Emily, past the smirking strangers, to seat 12F.
To me.
Ma'am, she said quietly but firmly. Are you Major Sarah Whitfield? The entire cabin turned. Emily's face went pale. I nodded. Yes. We've received confirmation from command. You are recognized on this flight. They're requesting status confirmation directly from you, ma'am. I calmly reached into my bag, pulled out my identification, and confirmed my clearance code over the intercom system the crew handed me. My voice, steady and clear, carried through the cabin. Passengers who had smirked minutes earlier now stared in stunned silence. The captain came on again, his voice full of relief. Thank you, Major. Escort confirmed as routine security protocol. We apologize for the alarm, everyone. Please remain seated.
Routine?
Maybe for command. But for that cabin, it was anything but routine. Every eye in that plane turned toward the woman they had just called a nobody. I looked toward the front of the plane. Emily was frozen in her seat, her mouth slightly open, her face a mixture of shock and shame. She had spent years building herself up by pushing me down. And in one single moment, in front of everyone who had laughed at her joke, the truth had come out, louder than she ever could have shouted it herself. I didn't say anything to her. I didn't need to gloat. I didn't need revenge in the way people imagine. No shouting, no cruel words thrown back. The moment had already delivered its own justice. When the flight landed, Emily approached me at the gate, her voice small for the first time in her life. Sarah, I didn't know, she whispered. Why didn't you ever tell us? Because you never asked, I said gently. You only ever assumed. Truth finally spoken. That evening, at our mother's birthday dinner, the story of the flight had already spread through the family. People who once dismissed me now looked at me differently, not with fear, but with respect. Emily sat quietly for most of the night, something rare for her. Later, she pulled me aside. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time in years, she meant it. I built myself up by making you smaller. That wasn't fair. I didn't know who you really were, but that's not an excuse. I should have respected you either way. I nodded. You don't have to know someone's title to treat them with kindness, I told her. That should have been enough from the start. We didn't hug and pretend 20 years of habits disappeared overnight. But something shifted that day. A door that had been closed for years finally cracked open. 11. The moral, what this story really means. Here's what I learned from that flight. High above the clouds, surrounded by strangers who once smirked and later stared in silence. You never really know who someone is by how loud they are or how quiet they choose to be. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet won't announce it. They won't need to. They'll simply sit in seat 12F, calm and unaffected, while the world eventually reveals what they were too humble to say themselves. If there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this: never measure someone's worth by their silence. And never assume weakness in someone simply because they choose kindness over conflict. Because sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one the whole sky comes to protect. If this story moved you, remember, respect costs nothing, but disrespecting the wrong person can cost you everything.